And it's really sad, but occasionally people die or they get killed as a result of parental alienation.
I started my own research to kind of try to figure out what is this craziness that's going on. And I actually identified that family law is probably responsible for 25% of the crime in the United States.
In one case, it was a 10-year-old boy had a gun and shot and killed his father, and there was alienation between the two of them.
He went to get the children for his first visitation, and he set up to where the visitation exchange would be in the parking lot of a grocery store, which was a very public place. There were cameras, at the grocery store, and he thought that would be safe.
When I was a young officer, we were responding very few radio calls dealing with family law, very few calls related to custody, divorce, and so on. Fast forward 15 years, and now 100% of our radio calls on certain days and times are related to custody, not just for a few hours, not just a few cars, but the whole day. All the shifts are related to family law.
And he heard a male's voice say, "Hi, John," and he turned around and it was actually his ex-father-in-law. So it was his ex-wife's father. And he had a gun and was pointing it at him, and he shot him once in the chest, and as John turned to run, he shot him twice more in the back. And he died a short time later.
On the weekends, starting from Friday through Sundays, and sometimes even Monday mornings, we look like child care centers. So many people are coming to the police station to exchange the children in a safe location. And that doesn't even go into the number of child abuse investigations that we currently do. I'm not talking about valid child abuse investigations, I'm talking about false child abuse allegations.
John had passed a polygraph test, he had gone through a psychosexual evaluation. He had done everything he could to show that none of that happened. I mean, he was completely cleared.
If there's a severe case of parental alienation, the alienating parent is so determined to keep the child away from the rejected parent that the alienating parent kills the child.
A father who the mother thought was in a pedophile ring, so she murdered all three of her children, were only 3, 2, and 6 months, I think it was. She murdered them to protect them from the father.
In another case, a teenage girl assisted her father in murdering the mother. The child was alienated from her mother.
Because he was paying too much in child support, and he wanted to correct his financial issues. And he talked his 19-year-old daughter into helping him. And then she helped him stage the suicide. He wanted to make it look like a suicide. And she was convicted. She was shown leniency because it was felt. It's one of the few times I've ever heard the words parental alienation used by a district attorney's office who felt that she had been manipulated and groomed probably over many years. And the father said, "I'm going to commit suicide if you don't help me do this." So she chose the father over the mother.
Maybe the best known was a book published about a case in Vancouver, Canada, called The Kidnapped Mind, which was about a teenage boy who was alienated from his mother, and life got so impossible for him, he killed himself. And his mother wrote a book about it.
We're seeing mass shootings related to family law on a scale we never could have anticipated.
We've seen in the last 2 or 3 years where a new boyfriend in the picture will shoot the father at a visitation exchange, which someone like that should never be at the visitation exchange to begin with.
We have the largest mass shooting in the history of Orange County by a gentleman who was deprived of custody after many years fighting in court. And he shot and killed 8 or 9 people who had nothing to do with his divorce or custody. He did kill the mother, but he killed all the people walking to the business.
So that's one type of murder that is very sad, but it's associated with parental alienation.
We have people in one town, one father murdered his family, And that town hadn't had a homicide in 10 years. And in one night, in order to cover up his crime, he also set the house on fire. 5 people died in a town that had not a single homicide in 10 years.
And the mother had been ordered by the court to return the boy to the father, and she instead killed the boy and then killed herself in order to prevent that from happening.
We see an increase in the number of homicides with children. One father, he took the kids for custody and he murdered them. And he would not even tell the police, when eventually he was arrested and confessed, he wouldn't tell where the children were buried.
The mother egged the father on with text messages and email messages, egged him on to commit suicide because he was worthless and so on, which he did. And it all was over their child, which had been alienated from him.
We actually had a train derail in City of Los Angeles in my division where a gentleman was pending a divorce, and he was so devastated by it that he wanted to commit suicide. And he attempted suicide twice but failed. So he says, "Oh, I'll park my car on the train tracks and there's no way I'll survive getting hit by a train. That'll solve all my problems." But at the last minute, he changed his mind, but he couldn't start his vehicle. And so he jumped to safety. But 15 people died in that train wreck crash, and over 200 were injured. So the other aspect when we talk about family is the other innocent people who had nothing to do with the divorce, nothing to do with custody issues that are impacted.
John did everything right. He got accused of this, this terrible thing, and he did everything he could and showed that it didn't happen. He followed the court's orders. He did everything he was supposed to do, and he still lost his life. And so we've got to do something to make visitation exchanges safer.
And the worst part about it, these are people who live next door to you. They're family members. They're people who may not even have a traffic ticket, may have never committed a crime. We're not talking about people with long pages of criminal history. We're talking about people you interact with every day, people who commit horrific crimes before they even get into court, because the method and manner in which we rule in court is so devastating before even the first court date.
So those are the different kinds of deaths, of fatalities that occur. What we would like to do is, now that it's been published, we would like to expand it. We're thinking that there are situations that have not been publicized but that exist in families. And so we think that some families will come forward with those cases and tell us about them.